Happy New Year to all of you. Glad to see you today on this January 3rd, 2024. Today we're going to talk about learning, teaching, and leading. And the key points I want to talk about today is the fact that I've learned so much from the first 17 episodes of this podcast. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Looking into when you have a project or an idea, is to just jump to the idea, try it, and then work your way through as you need to learn something more. So this is the plan for today. So my name is Alain Faber. I've been teaching it's my 25th year of teaching in high school, and I'm here to share with you some of my ideas and experiences as a teacher, as a science teacher, but also in three different perspectives. One perspective is about the learner, second as a teacher, and the third one as a leader, so that hopefully you'll be able to learn from my ideas. If you have any questions, put them in the comments below. I'm here to answer them indeed. So let's see if we can make sure that we have the sound here, so we're ready to go. So this year, this is my 18th episode for my podcast. I've been wanting to do a podcast for many years, and at some point I came to term that regardless of how much preparation I do to get ready for this, the best way is to do one. So learning about a podcast and all the theory behind it is great, but actually doing a podcast is the best way to learn. I've realized a lot of it that many of my podcasts so far were not very good, but I know that I'm improving. And that is the main question here that I talk about learning today. So the best way to learn is to actually do the thing. Too often we may watch videos during the evening. We may have a video training. Some people may have a one-on-one with a trainer. In high school, you are in your classroom. What happens is that there's always all kind of ways to learn. You can listen to people. You can read. But the best way to learn is actually to do the thing. And that's why I think I'm so happy that I did that. I have to say that my first episode was on August 31st of 2023. Why is it that I started on August 31st? Is that I wanted to start my podcast before I started my new school year. And all summer I was thinking about all the things I needed to do to prepare, up to a point where it was the week before I started teaching. And as I had told myself I was to start a podcast. So that's when I started it. Was my first podcast great? Far from that. However, I've learned to be more comfortable. Since that time, I've created videos in English for science students on this channel, which I was not quite sure for the longest time, given that that English is my second language, given that this YouTube channel is for me to find a venue for sharing what I know, but also practice my second language. And if some of you here are saying, well, I'm learning my second or third language, having a YouTube channel or finding ways to use the language to get better is amazing. And that's one reason why I have this YouTube channel, and it's always amazing to be here. The next thing I've learned also about this is that most podcasters have a team behind them to either have a list of all the new topics coming up in the weeks to come, so they don't struggle to find subjects or topics to do to podcast. The next thing is they have a team to find guests for them. So far I've enjoyed this podcast by myself. I can't wait to see if I can continue, but also bring in guests and other people to discuss different topics about learning, teaching, and leadership that I think will be amazing. So that is something that I've learned this year. And so I will need 52 topics to set up. So this is something I'm going to have to do in the next couple of days before next week, so that I know exactly what I want to talk about. And second, it will allow me to plan ahead and maybe find guests on those topics. So that's the first thing. The next one I mentioned that I learned was the fact that I've done these podcasts live all the time which is amazing. But sometimes I find that I don't always have the time at the moment to do the podcast. And I think that if I was to have interviews, it would be harder for me to ask people to be available on Wednesdays at 7:30 for Toronto time in Canada. So that's something I need to look into. But this is all part of, some people say it's part of the growing pains of doing something new. But the best way to learn is actually facing these situations and finding solutions. I think it is exciting. The second segment of this podcast is about teaching. And I want to share that the main reason I started the podcast was just in case, as a teacher, someone was to ask me, how do you create a podcast? And as a teacher, often people learn different skills and they teach different skills. However, one way for me to feel comfortable with a topic is to actually do the thing. So I was a geologist before I became a science teacher. And when I teach science, I bring all kind of ideas from my experience in the field in my classes. And the reason for that is that it allowed me to become more comfortable with scientific topics. And second, it brings ideas and it allows me to, for example, bring new ideas to labs and make people realize that the best way to learn is to actually have labs. This semester, I'm teaching, it's called Communication Technology in Business. And one thing I wanted to share with my students is that creating a podcast is a great way to create a portfolio for future endeavors. Sometimes it's to build an audience, sometimes to learn new skills, to meet new people. I haven't had a chance to teach them because I realized it was not part of the curriculum. However, I do think that it's a skill that I will share with them. Because sometimes in science, for example, in September, I asked my students to create a podcast, so an audio podcast about a topic related to environmental science. So they created an audio presentation and they shared that with me. But imagine if at that time they would have taken that podcast and put it online. It would have allowed them to know that what they're learning at school can actually be shared to others so that they can have improved confidence for the next steps. So I think that's something that I need to look into, maybe bring it to the next semester that starts in February. All part of good things. So as I go along, I'm getting new ideas for my classes as well. So thank you very much for being here with me and thinking of that. The third topic of this, or the third segment of this podcast, is about leadership. And for me, when I think of leadership, is someone, it may be part of a team, maybe leading a team. You may be part of a company, the head of a company. You could be in a group, friend group. It could be, what else could it be as a leader? It could be part of your religious community. It could also be at the head of a family. The whole idea here is when you're a leader, you want to be able to share with others what you know, but also guide them for themselves to become better leaders. And I think that's why it's important. So this idea of talking about learning so that you can be more knowledgeable to grow is important. Teaching allows you to better understand what you're learning. But also when you're a leader, you become a teacher, but not just telling others what to do and how to do it, but is to guide them to be the best version of themselves they can be. And I think that's quite exciting. So am I a leader with respect to this podcast? In some ways, yes, because I took upon myself to actually create the podcast. So if someone asks me how it is done, I'll be able to help them. I won't be able to do that for them. I'll be able to guide them to do the best work they can. For the same reason that the best way for me to learn how to podcast is to do it, or to listen to other podcasters, to see tricks of the trade and so on. The whole idea here is the best way to grow as an individual is to be open to be the best learner as you can be, and then learn what you can so you can become the best teacher as you can be, so that you can be a leader in your community and make the world a better place. And that is the message I have for you tonight. So hopefully this you've been having a chance in the last couple of days to think about what are some of your projects for this year, for 2024. I did not wait for January 1st to start my podcast. I started it in the summer 2023. So if you have in mind that you want to try to start a podcast, think about it, but don't wait too long. The best way to learn is to actually do it. You may not be the best at first, however, the best way to learn is to actually do it. I believe in you. Do great things. And on this, I will see you next week on the podcast. I don't know what the topic is, but you'll see as we go along this year, I'm learning that we can plan ahead for our podcast. And that is exciting. On this, be amazing. And if you have a chance to watch other videos on this channel, you'll see lots of things to learn. Take care. Bye-bye.